Guys, I'm gonna stick with the podcast motto. I'm not gonna trust the Clippers. I'm gonna ride with Jokic here. I agree.
Respect.
I agree with the criticisms of the Nuggets. They're very fair. It's in disarray right now. I don't know. I think they can find. Maybe it's just personal pride that they need to find. I don't know what it is. Maybe Jokic needs to just yell at the team a little bit more, like he has been on the sidelines in recent games. I'm going to go Nuggets in 7. I think it's going to be an incredibly close series. It wouldn't shock me if you guys are correct about the Clippers. They're certainly the hotter team going into this. I can't envision Jokic with a first round exit, but it's not like that's never happened before. We'll see what happens. This may be the year that it happens again. In terms of Vegas, they see it. This is the closest split. Clippers minus 125. So Vegas sees this probably as a 6 or 7 game series. Welcome to In the Lab with Hoopsology. I am your host, Matt Thomas, joined by my co-hosts. First, we'll throw to Allan Munzler. Allan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well, man. You guys gave me a shout out on the last In the Lab episode. I really appreciate it. I am just trying to get sleep here and there where it'll come, but we welcomed some new children into our family, so very blessed and thrilled about that. Everyone's doing well. Thank God for that. So very excited. Taking a little break, little pause in the podcast paternity leave here today. Very excited to join you guys and talk some hoops. And before we move forward, Justin, our other host, got to throw to you, Justin Goodrum. How are you doing, man?
Fighting allergies and getting ready for WrestleMania. As you know, I'm a huge wrestling fan, so this is kind of like one of the big holidays. So it's the madness of WrestleMania, so that I'm paying attention to that. And it's the first time I've seen you virtually, Matt, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Just everything going well, so that's awesome to hear, man. Congrats.
Thank you very much. And you guys have been crushing it on the podcast lately, all the interviews and things that you're doing. So great work, gentlemen. Justin, give me 1 minute on WrestleMania. What are you looking forward to? Just real quick. Just give me like your solid hot minute on WrestleMania.
Well, Allan will get a kick out of this because he's a big hip hop fan. I don't know if you're aware, Travis Scott made an appearance at one of the big pay-per-views and legitimately injured Cody Rhodes, like legit busted his eardrum.
No.
On an end when John Cena turned heel. So it was just a lot of things came out from that. So the heel turn, it's been gotten mixed reviews, so we'll see how that goes for John Cena. Big deal. But other than that, really, honestly, it's a lot of I'm interested in the sports business stuff. So it's all tied into the UFC, TKO, and just what the WWE is doing from a business standpoint. So the show itself, I mean, compared to the other eras, way better. So there's a lot of great matches. So if you spend some time watching it, I think your time won't be wasted on Peacock or internationally on Netflix, but should be a good time.
Right on. So there's your minute on WrestleMania. Yeah, I'm very curious to see John Cena continue on the heel route here. Obviously an anomaly for him and his career, but hey, what are you going to do? They're trying something new here. We'll see how it works out. We have a lot to cover today. Before we get into it, I do want to give a shout out to our good listeners and viewers. Thank you as always. Still continuing to earn new subscriptions, new viewers to our YouTube channel. We really appreciate when you guys like our content, share our content, get involved in the discussion, throw a comment on there. Thank you so much for your support of the show. Hoopsology keeps rolling on strong into the playoffs here. And that's primarily what we're here to discuss today. We have our annual playoff preview that we always do. But before we get to that, there have also been several headlines that have been going down. And Justin, I want to throw to you for this. We have a number of topics to choose from. Where do you want to lead us off?
Yeah, so just a couple of things I just want your guys' opinion on before we hop into the playoffs because it actually happened today at the recording of this podcast. So first was Mat Ishbia the Phoenix Suns owner, any owner at the Phoenix Mercury. Basically, teams that don't make the playoffs, they have their season-ending press conferences. So Mat Ishbia issued his statement, and he basically was kind of in the firing squad. And particularly, Matt and I have a mutual friend with Josh. He's a huge fan of the Phoenix Suns, and this has been a sad time for him. I just want to read a couple of quotes just regarding their season from Mat Ishbia. First, regarding the firing of Mike Budenholzer, quote, the team and the roster that was constructed, it was much better than a 36-win roster. There's a lot of reasons why Coach Bud is not here. He also talked about Stephen A. Smith calling him, I guess, the worst owner in sports. There's some conflict, at least from Stephen A. Smith, saying that he necessarily didn't say that, but nevertheless, he's going to rebuttal, and that's going to turn into another debacle. So focusing on the Phoenix Suns end of this with Mat Ishbia, a lot of positives in terms of what he's done for the fans, in terms of making the games visible and not charging fees, and also the practice facility for the Phoenix Mercury. But I would say this season's been a disaster for the Suns, considering the roster. Just your guys' thoughts on, is there any hope for Ishbia to turn it around, and is he kind of not taking too much heat considering what's going on with the Dallas Mavericks with Nico Harrison right now?
Alan, go ahead. Go ahead. You want to take the lead on this?
Yeah. So the Phoenix Sun. I mean, first of all, his press conference I thought was like a disaster. I think if I'm a coach and I'm looking to take that job, I'm like staying away, because I mean, he not only fired Bud, but he like lit him on fire as he kicked him out in front of everybody. I think that's just poor taste. And it felt like he was blaming everything and not the shoddy roster construction, or the rush decisions that he's forced the general manager and the president of basketball operations to do in order to build a contender. It was not good. I mean, Justin, I think Phoenix will get a great draft pick this year, so I think that's going to be really good for. Oh wait, sorry, never mind. That's gonna be good for the Rockets. So I don't know I don't know how they turn this around. I mean, everybody knows KD wants to leave. That's gonna be like that's a buyer's market for KD, on an expiring deal, and he's gonna expect a 2-year extension out of that, a la Jimmy Butler. So there's not gonna be a lot of teams that are gonna be really willing to offer that. I and their draft situation is not that good for upcoming years. I think Houston has another one of their picks, and a little later on too, like in 29 or 31. I don't know. They're kind of in a bad spot, or you might say a Brad spot, since Bradley Beal's kind of the big issue with them.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the first order of business, right? Is they have to figure out something with Bradley Beal, sit him down in a room. Hey, this isn't going to work out. We know you've got this no trade clause, but come on, man. If you look at the numbers, when it's been Durant and Booker together, this team has been decent, and even a winning team. I mean, a solidly winning record. So if they could manage to keep KD on the roster with Booker, there's, I would say, hope at a more successful season next year. Not that that's saying a ton, but they would at least be a play-in tournament team. Obviously, Mat Ishbia has much greater vision for this team than that. But when you do too much, as we've discussed before, you get into a rut like this. And really, when you look at, Justin, you mentioned the Dallas Mavericks. Right now, the Suns are kind of reminding me of the Dallas Cowboys, to mention another team in Dallas, just kind of getting headlines, but not really having a lot of success. You guys well remember, I mean, Suns in 4 guy. I mean, that was a long time ago at this point now, that we were there, and this team has just been spiraling since then. And it's really that extra move for the Bradley Beal deal. In my heart of hearts, I will kind of root for this team because of the fan-friendly changes that Mat Ishbia has brought forth that may inspire other owners. And I do think that there can be other things that come up, like we always over the years have these situations like, oh my goodness, how are you going to move that Chris Paul contract? How are you going to move that Russell Westbrook contract? And then things happen, and teams are able to progress. It just seems very unlikely, but with the new cap aprons and all that stuff that we're not going to get into right now, you are a little bit more stuck in the mud. And so I am very curious to see how Phoenix will get out of this, but I do think that they are proactive. So far, it's been to a fault, but maybe that can help them right the ship here. We don't have any track record of that with this new ownership, that his action will right the ship, but maybe he's learned some lessons in this short-term period that he's owned the team.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, he could. I mean, new owners sometimes do really dumb things. I mean, you mentioned the Chris Paul Russell Westbrook thing. I mean, Tillman Fertitta pushed that trade for the Rockets,
Yeah.
and then wisely, after it backfired, turned over basketball operations to his son and to Raphael Stone. So, I mean, maybe Matt should stick to the, business side, the stuff that he's doing really well at, and find somebody he trusts to run the basketball operations side.
Justin, your thoughts on Phoenix? I want to get you in on this too before we
Yeah.
move to the next topic.
Yeah, just real quick, I agree with your guys' sentiments. It seems to me he's very defensive, and it reminds me kind of with Steve Alford when he left the Lobos, but only at least Steve Alford was like kind of successful in terms of the Mountain West Conference championships, where the Suns have not under his ownership. So I don't know. This smells like it's gonna escalate and getting worse. And like you said, Allen, just with the picks not being theirs, I just in terms of fixing the situation, I don't think it gets any better, unfortunately. So
Last thought for me on this, I do find joy in that the situation didn't work. Not any negativity directed towards Suns fans or anything like that, but just in that you can't just go and throw pieces together and expect a championship. Like, chemistry, continuity is still very, very important in the NBA. And I think we're seeing that, I mean, over the past, I would say, about 5 to 6 years at least, we're seeing that chemistry and continuity is really necessary for finals runs overall, in comparison to like the super team model. So I am glad to see that, just as a basketball fan in general.
agreed. No, totally. Shifting to the WNBA real quick, they had their WNBA draft. Just wanted to point out a couple of storylines from there. First, Paige Buckers goes to the Dallas Wings. I think that organization has been disappointing in recent years, so good to see them retool with that. Also with Dominique Malinga, so she played on the France national team. And just seeing some of her highlights, I think she's going to be a force. I'm very interested to see what she can do for Seattle. And then probably the other big headline was Haley Van Lith being reunited with Angel Reese. So that was kind of the conjecture on social media in terms of, do they get along? Do they what's their relationship like? She said nothing but positive things about Angel, so we'll see. I think Chicago Sky. I was into them last year. I love their coaches. Too bad what they did with Teresa Weatherspoon. I thought she got robbed in that situation, in my opinion. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens in the W. There's been already some just weird media stories that I'm like, why is this a story? Why are we talking about this? Just in terms of the momentum of the league. But for both of you, just heading into, because I'm sure we'll do a full season preview and have a bunch of analysts breaking this down. But, entering kind of, we're a little bit over a month out from the WNBA season. I think, what are you looking for from either the teams or from a league standpoint to build on the momentum of last year? Lots of new attention. based on, of course, Caitlin Clark, but also just the league capitalizing on it in terms of just a great play. I think they hit a grand slam in terms of every single event from the WNBA Finals to the All-Star game. What do you think the league needs to do to capitalize on that momentum?
I'll go first and just simply say, keep doing what works, which is certainly keep Caitlin Clark in that spotlight. Try and, I would say, because what I'm most curious about this next season is, are we going to have the sustained interest in Caitlin Clark games, and does that continue to raise the water, to raise the level for all boats, so to speak, getting more viewers for the league in general? So do whatever you can to keep Caitlin Clark in the spotlight. She is just red hot in terms of the attention that she brings for the entire league. So that it's pretty cut and simple for me. I think there should be a lot of interest in Paige, and I do find it interesting that she was drafted opposite, the sister team of the Dallas Mavericks, which is a franchise that we're going to talk about in a little bit with Adam Silver comments. But it's just interesting that she's, the kind of the next big thing, so to speak, or at least the big thing from this draft, obviously, is the number one pick, and she goes to that market in Dallas. So maybe we see another blip of increased viewership in that Texas area.
Yeah, and I agree, Matt. And I think, in addition, I think focus on those rivalries because,
Yeah.
I mean, that Caitlin Clark Angel Reese rivalry drove viewership. And, I mean, as ugly as it got from the fans, I mean, you can now go to the grocery store and get those, Angel Reese's Puffs cereal, I mean, both of them are doing commercials. To me, this is very much, it reminds me of the Magic and Larry rivalry of the 1980s in the NBA. And I think you got to go all in because we love rivalries. You got to go all in. And we need a competitive Indiana and a competitive Chicago team. And it doesn't hurt that they're like within an hour of each other.
And honestly, that's something that I think the W has with even just that rivalry mentioned there is a hotter rivalry at the moment than anything we have in the NBA that comes to mind. I mean, there's some player beefs and things like that. But when you talk about the teams and the animosity towards each other, hopefully keeping it to a healthy level, a competitive level. But yeah, when you think of that Indiana versus Chicago, that's something that any casual basketball fan has circled on their calendar when those two teams are playing.
Yeah, and I would just add the Liberty against the Seattle Storm to that as well. That's based on what we saw last year. So it's going to be interesting. I think with Caitlin Clark, 41 of 44 games will be broadcasted or streamed nationally. So clearly they're going to be focusing on her. I think if everybody stays healthy, I think the WNBA is poised for huge momentum. I would just say for the television broadcast partners, not to focus on BS storylines from the internet. And like you were saying, focus on the rivalries and what's happening on the court. I think that's fair game. But kind of anything that's personal, that's irrelevant, I think you're just wasting the viewer's time. So hopefully we focus more on what's going on the court and not any kind of culture war, other agenda nonsense, and that goes for both sides of the aisle there. So
that's what I'm curious about year two as well, because I'm wondering if people get fatigued if they're relying on that side of things. So yeah, agreed.
It is,
and they don't need to. They're both great, excellent players. I mean,
exactly.
They both broke rookie records in their own respective ways. There's your focus.
Yeah. Let's just hope the media fulfills their end of the bargain, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Moving on before we get into our playoff preview, Adam Silver was on Pat McAfee, so Adam Silver doesn't make a ton of media appearances, so I thought it was noticeable that he was on Pat McAfee. He likes him, watches his show, and he has a relationship with Pat. The most noticeable, he said kind of the stereotypical things about media rights deal, media changing, watching habits, gambling, etc. But I think the most interesting thing was his comments on the Dallas Mavericks and the Luka trade. So A couple of things that he said, I want you guys to get your opinion on this. He said, quote, I understand why the Dallas Mavericks fans are so upset, and I personally am a fan of Luka Doncic. I want him to be great, and I want the Dallas Mavericks to be great. There's been so much interest in this trade, and let's see how it turns out. And then Silver addressed the particular rumors that you were talking about, Allan, and you were the first. Credit to you because you brought it up first, and I think it's like everybody jumped on your bandwagon. He said, quote, the only place where I feel defensive is on the behalf of the Dallas Mavericks and new ownership there, that there are some suggestions that the trade wasn't done for basketball reasons, that somehow the new owner didn't want to pay a maximum salary or was focused on real estate development or something else. The only thing I can say is that I feel very confident about knowing Patrick Dumont, who is the governor of this team, and the people involved. They believe that they are making the best trade on behalf of the Dallas Mavericks. Whether it turns out to be true, again, only time will tell. I've known Nico for a long time. Nico Harrison, he is a long-time executive at Nike before he was at the Dallas Mavericks. Again, whether he made the right trade, he's a really decent person, and I know he's trying to do what is best for the franchise. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? BS, or you think that's his genuine feelings?
I'll go first. I think Adam Silver is an employee of the NBA, and thus he works for Patrick Dumont in a certain way. Calling Nico Harrison a decent person is kind of weird. That's like I if I'm calling somebody decent, that's not a compliment.
Yeah, right.
Um, that's
Alan's
like
a
the
really
lowest
decent
level.
guy. You
That's the
guys.
lowest level you can attain. Um, so I I just think it's ask people in Vegas what they think of Patrick Dumont, and that'll tell you everything you need to know. And I'm going to leave it there.
Yeah, if you guys go onto YouTube, you probably see me smiling while Justin's reading that quote from Adam Silver, just trying to hold back my laughter. I just say, it's politics, baby. It's it's politics right there. That's a very canned answer, very tame answer from Adam Silver. Does not surprise me at all. And of course, you're not gonna you're not gonna acknowledge it if what he said was not the case, or if there was any extra to that. I think it's been well said, and on our show as well. What the consensus is around the Luka trade, and how absurd that is. and I was even one who was a little bit more like understanding of the criticisms against Luka, but even I think the trade was ridiculous. So, Justin, what are your thoughts on all this?
No, I think it's just you talk about Phoenix being a disaster. I don't know what you call Dallas. I mean, if you believe Shams Charania, I don't know if you guys heard about Nico Harrison, that kind of shadow, I don't know what you would call it, meeting or convention of him in the media, and there's no cameras, no recording devices. And with Sarania, he claimed that was not Nico Harrison's idea. It was ownership's idea to do that. So it's very interesting that Nico Harrison's like the scapegoat.
Yeah,
And I think if I were him, if he's smart, he would find a way to get the hell out of this franchise immediately. Like find some kind of clause, something. I don't know what the contract he has, whatever, but they're ruining his reputation. I mean, I don't know if he can ever have a job in the NBA again. I mean, even if Luka doesn't win a title in LA, the Lakers are halfway decent, and the Mavericks just continue to go down the toilet. I mean, can he have another chance? I don't think so.
well, like Alan said in a past episode, just go work for Rob Pelinka. I think Alan was right on the money with
Good
that.
point.
He's got a job with Rob
Fair.
Pelinka
Fair.
wherever he ends up.
That's smart. Yeah. That's a good point. He can just, be the tape manager there and work his way up until his reputation is solidified. So
I mean, you could give him credit for one thing, I think, and which is really amazing with all the front office leaks that do happen. He could put himself right up there with Presti and Stone and Buford or whoever's running San Antonio now. You never get leaks from those guys.
That's true.
that's true.
That's
Good
a great point.
That's true.
Yeah, by the way, just side note, Pat McAfee is making all kinds of NBA headlines in recent weeks. I mean, you guys recall, I'm sure, that he had LeBron James on as
He
a
did.
guest on his show recently. LeBron doesn't do a lot of these interviews. he made the insane comment that Giannis would score like 250 points in a game in the 70s that kind of stirred the pot a little bit. I'm not going to say any more about that. But yeah, all of a sudden, Pat McAfee, a player in NBA media.
I'm not surprised just due to how popular his show is,
Yeah.
how it's linked to ESPN, how ESPN is desperate just due to everything that's going on over there. And Pat McAfee basically can do whatever he wants. He can curse. He can, have Aaron Rodgers on. Can do, and I think also with LeBron being on, it's a safe space, knowing that Pat McAfee, he might say some comments here or there, but he's not a journalist. He's not going to press. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be a situation where he's going to ask follow-up questions. He's going to crack some jokes. They're going to have some fun, and you're going to get a lot of views and clicks in. You're going to get some publicity. And at that point, it's probably like it's the best way to gain publicity for whatever thing you're trying to promote. So I'm not surprised by his success. It's very interesting because he's in so many different categories that I follow. So just his rise in the media space, I just find really fascinating. So yeah, I'm not surprised as his relationship with the NBA. But in another way, I mean, his number one priority is the NFL. So I don't think his basketball interest is going to surpass what he's focused on right now, which is the draft for the NFL. So.
Absolutely. Justin, were there any other recent headlines or anything else you wanted to discuss before we get into our playoff preview?
No, I think it's time to jump into it since we got a lot of matchups to break down. I know you both are chomping at the bit, so without further ado.
That we are. Let's do it. And we're going to start in the Eastern Conference just because I think that'll be a nice warm-up for us before we get into what I believe will be a more complicated and contentious Western Conference. And actually, before we even get into matchups, we've already had play-in tournament games before the recording of this podcast even. The Orlando Magic, I'm sure you guys are aware, basically ran the Atlanta Hawks off of the floor, 120-95 victory, very unceremonious exit, ejection for Trae Young in that game. So I just want to ask, because I don't think we're going to have much analysis, even if the Hawks were to win their next play-in game, which, by the way, is against the Heat, for that 8th seed. I don't see either of those teams really challenging the Cavaliers all that hard. So in lieu of that analysis, what are you guys' thoughts on Trae Young right now? Allan, I'll throw to you first. Where does he stand? Do the Hawks need to discuss moving on from him? What do you feel about Trae Young right now?
Well, I wasn't there for the interview, but Justin, talked to Bob Rathburn, and I mean, he is definitely against tanking. So any thoughts of trading Trae Young? I think it's interesting to kind of posit. I like their younger guys, Jalen Johnson, Reese Sachet. I think Reese Sachet is going to be a star. He has grown so much just this season. He's still young and raw, but I think he's going to get there. I look at that team and I don't know what you would do. You've got a Batman villain as the coach. You've got this kind of hodgepodge of players who don't exactly fit. But you do have an interesting base of young players. And when I say young, I'm talking like under 25 with Risa Shea, Dyson Daniels, and Jalen Johnson that I think could make some noise if you put the right pieces around them. So that's really what to me is the Hawks. Can you get the right pieces with a Trae Young trade? Or can Trae continue the growth he did show this season when he upped his assist and didn't dominate the ball as much, and still be a part of this and still fit their timeline? As interesting questions, I don't know the answers.
Same question to you, Justin.
Yeah, I echo Allan's sentiments. I mean, take a look at the Eastern Conference now. I mean, the Hawks finished 8th, and I see the other teams behind them really struggling. I don't really see next season those teams leapfrogging the Hawks. And the Hawks were injured, like Bob Rathbun said. I mean, they were hurt most of the year, and then that caused a lot of issues in terms of their matchup against the Atlanta Magic. And I would say there's a lot of turmoil, at least with the Bucks, and I would say the Pacers and Knicks. Those are not exactly, I would say, stable franchises in terms of what their roster is going to look like, despite their success. So I think for the Hawks, trading Trae Young, unless there's a provocative trade that's going to make their team become instantly better, would be a mistake. I think he kind of gets a bad rap just due to ever since the draft and all that stuff happening and just his attitude. I like his style. I like how he embraces being the villain. And I don't know, NBA fans is irritating because they want to take it back to the 90s and more grittier. And here you have a guy who's grittier, who talks trash, and all of a sudden they hate the guys. So it's just like, what do you all want? So to me, I think the Hawks have a very bright future, based on what I discussed with Bob, just in terms of their young roster. And yeah, and I think Allan, you're right. If Trae Young continues just his maturity, his evolution, I think the Hawks can actually return to kind of their glory days they had, a few years ago.
Yeah, you guys bring up good points, and I'm someone who I feel a little bit more strongly. There were rumors about the Rockets' interest in Trae Young like a couple years back when I think all of this Trae Young trade rumors started. And I'm someone who's on the side that I would not want him on my favorite team. I don't think his presence on a team equates to winning basketball. I think it's starting to look more and more like that Eastern Conference Finals run that they had, which is the biggest feather in his cap. It's starting to look more and more like that was more of a fluke or just a really hot streak. I mean, you do have to give him a lot of credit. He was great that playoffs run, but I don't think his play style is necessarily conducive to winning. I don't know that he can be that 1A leader of a team. And at the same time, I feel like you guys do that it would be probably too many steps back to trade him and sort of hit this kind of reset button, whether you're talking draft assets or I don't think you ever get equal star value in deals like this, or it's very, very rare. So I'm with you. I don't think I would trade him right now if I were the Atlanta Hawks, just for those reasons. But one thing I heard that was surprising to me, and granted, we have a faster pace of play today and things like that, but Trae Young right now, you guys, I don't know if you're aware, but he sits at third all time in career assists per game. He's only behind the greats of Magic Johnson and John Stockton in terms of his career average assists per game. Not talking total assists, just the rate per game, but still, I found that to be pretty impressive. So, again, I don't think it's been a situation where he's had as much success as those other two, certainly, that were mentioned there. But it's interesting what you do. Let's move forward. I think whether the Heat or the Hawks win, I feel very strongly, certainly, that the Cavaliers are going to win that series in, I would say, 5 or less games. Do you guys feel in agreement there or disagreement depending on the matchup? I'll just throw to you to answer that simple question for this 1 versus 8 series. Justin, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, not much to add to that. I would say 4 games, a sweep. I don't really see a compelling challenge for the Cavaliers.
Allan, anything we're missing in those potential matchups?
No.
All right. Well, respectfully, sorry, Hawks and Heat, but that's what happens when you get the 8th seed many times, especially a team that's been on fire like the Cavaliers have been all season long. So there you have it. Let's move right ahead with the 2 versus 7 as a result of that Magic's Hawk game. The Orlando Magic take the 7 seed. They're a team that's physical, that's aggressive. They're going to, pound you when you play against them. They're going to play that tough defense, but they're going up against the number 2 seed Boston Celtics, obviously the champions of last season. Jason Tatum, cover player for NBA 2K. Allan, I'll start with you. Your thoughts, maybe number of games and if the Magic have a puncher's chance here.
I think any kind of puncher's chance really depends on the status of Jaylen Brown's knee. which I know people in Boston are quietly concerned about, and the fans are mega concerned about. Uh, Other than that, no, I think the Celtics will probably win in a gentleman's sweep.
Justin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll be boring. I agree. And you take a look at the stats. Orlando won the season series 2-1, but Tatum didn't play in that game. I know Franz Wagner didn't play either, but I would say Tatum was the better player, so I think that matters in terms of the season series. So I think with Orlando, I think they have to take a look at what is the future of this franchise. I think they have a good young core. They clearly have their star player. What happens now? I think if I'm a fan of the Atlanta Magic, it's good that you have like this nucleus. You're making the playoffs. How about moving later into the latter parts of the playoffs? What happens there? How does that roster look like? And I think this series might go a long way in determining kind of the strengths and weaknesses and how to build around Banchero in the future. So yeah, I agree with Allen 4-1, and we'll see if Brown can recover.
Yeah, they need more shooting. They need another piece. Clearly, they're waiting on that to land. We'll see how active they are in the off season or at the trade deadline next season. But I think you're right on the money there. You guys both say about a gentleman's sweep. I would certainly agree with that. Vegas also strongly agrees with that. Celtics minus 5,000 favorites against the Magic right now. So Vegas certainly agrees with that. Let's move right ahead to a series that I think could be somewhat interesting, somewhat maybe at times a throwback type of series, although the New York Knicks are a much different offensively minded team than they have been compared to like the past 3 years before this year, with, of course, the addition of Karl Anthony Towns. So we have the 3 seed New York Knicks up against the 6 seed Detroit Pistons. Guys, I'll be honest, I've caught that the Detroit Pistons have impressed this year. I have not watched a ton of Pistons basketball, I will fully admit. Anything that you guys are seeing, and Justin, I'll start with you. How do you see this series going down? And again, same kind of question. Do the Pistons have any sort of shot at an upset?
I had some feelings of picking for the upset, but I just can't. And to me, I don't take too much stock what happens in the regular season, to be honest. And just based on kind of my own basketball knowledge, I just think the playoffs are different. There's a lot of other factors. The Pistons won the series in the regular season. I think my main concern with the Pistons, and I think Colin Cowherd brought this up, is how many ejections did they get? I think that's an issue in terms of maturity of this team. But I think it's a good step in the right direction in terms of facing a hard-nosed team like the Knicks. And the Knicks have plenty of vulnerabilities. I mean, with Thibodeau, I know he coached the Bulls, and I don't think he has improved in that regard in terms of how his philosophy is in the playoffs. So to me, I have New York in 6. I think that's a pretty huge accomplishment for the Pistons to do that. I just think kind of the star power of Jalen Brunson is going to be too much. And I do think unless you're a powerhouse like OKC, experience does matter. The stage is different. Just everything is different in the playoffs. I know with Mark Cuban, he was famous years ago saying like intangibles and all that doesn't matter. I think it does, especially for a team that's very inexperienced in the postseason. So I like the Knicks, but I think Detroit will make it interesting.
On your thoughts?
Yeah, Justin, I agree with you. I have Knicks in 6. Knicks are, we could talk about this later, but Knicks are my dark horse pick to win the East,
Ooh, I
based on
like it.
just some craziness that might happen. And so when I think about that, I mean, congratulations to Detroit first and foremost, to secure a playoff spot after being the worst,
Yeah.
and to play really really good basketball. They're a fun team to watch when they're not going through like a scoring drought. But that's a young team for you. So I think experience wins out here. I think proven playoff performers win out here. Um, and I think Knicks in 6.
Right on. Yeah, I'll probably just add to the Knicks, I guess, bias or whatever you want to call it. I would guess maybe even the Pistons get one at home and the Knicks take this in 5, but we're splitting hairs over one game. I think you guys are right on the money here. I think Detroit's going to bring a lot of effort, as they've done all year, which is, I think, the big reason for their improvement. However, I don't know that they have someone at crunch time in the playoffs. Like, I don't know that Cade is quite ready or has sort of the moves, the signature shots or finishing moves, those types of things when crunch time comes around is a big question mark. And that's no big insult or anything. It takes time to develop those things, and he's still a young player. Vegas has this Knicks minus 425. So a little bit closer maybe than I would have thought, especially when you consider, we just mentioned the Celtics as like minus 5,000 over the Magic. So Vegas respecting the Pistons, and maybe some of this depends on how the series is called, how physical they let these teams get with each other. Certainly when it comes to finesse offense, the Knicks are going to outclass the Pistons. And I think when push comes to shove, as we all three agree, the Knicks will come out victorious. I am really looking forward to a potential Knicks-Celtics series, assuming those teams are ready and good to go. So last in the Eastern Conference here, last series to analyze, which may be the most interesting of the first round series, the number 4 seed Indiana Pacers versus the number 5 seed Milwaukee Bucks. This has been a rivalry, a divisional rivalry for quite some time, but especially in recent years. Last season, you guys probably remember, we had Giannis kind of flipping out to get his game ball in one of those regular season games when he hit a certain milestone that I can't even remember at this point, but he ran back in the locker room after whoever had the game ball. So, Allan, I'll start with you. As the number 4 seed, we would assume that the Pacers are favored here. I believe Damian Lillard is still out heading into the postseason here. So it just seems, like the Bucks are so star-crossed. But what do you see? How do you see the series going, Allan?
I mean, any team that's got NBA champion Kyle Kuzma on it is fated to win, I think.
All right.
No, honestly, I think it's Pacers in 7. After the Bucks go up 3-1.
I see.
The legend of
So
Doc.
the Doc Rivers special.
Yep.
Right
Yep.
here. I'm sorry, Doc. You seem like a really nice guy, but yeah, that is we have seen that before, I will say. So yes, well put, Allan. Justin, how do you see this going?
Yeah, slight difference on the games, but I see the Pacers winning in 6. I think with Lillard, I don't know about his status, but even when he was playing against them, he wasn't really lighting the world on fire with just about 18 points a game and 35% from the field. So I agree. I just think, again, it's a lot of looking into the mirror for the Bucks. What's going to be the future of this team as well, and Giannis's patience. Because I remember when Lillard went there, that was a huge story to the NBA. They're going to be this massive tandem, and I think it's been an object failure. I don't think that's harsh to say. So I think it's very clear that the combination of the two of them, it's not good in Milwaukee. So I just think in terms of Giannis's future, as long as Lillard's there, as long as this team remains constructed as it is, I don't see him staying long term. I don't know what you guys know his contract probably better than I do, but I think whenever he has a shot, I don't see him remaining in Milwaukee. Just based on, a first round exit, that's never good, especially for an NBA champion. That's below his expectations and an MVP of the league. So I think this is going to be a humbling loss for the Bucks, but it's going to be bad blood. They don't like each other. So I think low key, it'll be an entertaining first round matchup.
Matt, a question for you. Do you think he'll be allowed to wear 34 when he's in Houston next season?
Ooh, man, I love the in Houston next season part of that. But no, I don't think so. I think, I'm sorry, you got to change up your number like Shaq had to, or something like when Shaq went to LA and he had to switch up his number. I'm sorry. dream comes first. You gotta switch up that jersey number. But oh man, I would love Giannis coming over to the Rockets. I don't know how all the Rockets fans out there would feel about that, but I know I've seen some, at least of the Twitter personalities on there, that are pretty salty about Giannis. But I think once he becomes yours, it becomes a different story. So I agree with you guys. I do think the Pacers come out on top in this series. I'm going to go ahead and say Pacers in 6. Personally, like low key, I'm kind of rooting on the Doc Rivers special now that Allan brought it up. I don't know. Gosh, that would just be too funny in a way for that to happen again. Vegas sees this Pacers minus 210. So Vegas sees this as, so far, the closest series of the ones we've gone through. Makes sense. It's a 4 versus 5 seed. And again, the Pacers do have the home court advantage for this series. Let's move into the Western Conference, you guys. We have a play-in game that'll be happening tomorrow night at the time of recording this podcast that will determine our 8 seed. It's the 9 seed Sacramento Kings versus the 10 seed Dallas Mavericks. Oh no, I'm sorry. Forgive me. The 10 seed Dallas Mavericks, who already won against the Sacramento Kings, surprisingly, against the 8 seed Memphis Grizzlies. Thoughts, guys, twofold, 2 questions. Who's going to win that play-in game and be the 8th seed? And then second question, will it matter since they are up against a Thunder team that just looks downright scary by the numbers? Allan, I'll give this one to you first.
I think Dallas wins. I think Anthony Davis pushes them over. Defense wins play-in games. And I don't think it matters. I think OKC wins in 4 or 5.
Same to you, Justin. Same question.
I agree. And if the Mavericks manage to win a game or 2 games against the Thunder, I'm not a fan of Jason Kidd. I don't know. I think you have to give him like some kind of an award for that. I mean, just with all the turmoil and everything, their players going down, with them to be still competitive, I think that's a minor miracle. I know he takes a lot of grief, but you got to give it up to the dude. If he's able to pull off a couple of wins against the Thunder, I don't think it's going to happen. I agree with Allan. I think they're going to destroy him. But if somehow they make it interesting, you got to give the guy his props, considering his franchise.
I honestly, I see the Grizzlies, call me crazy, I see the Grizzlies winning this play-in game, but we'll see what happens. Obviously, they weren't looking too hot against the Warriors, so there's a little bit of redemption that needs to happen for that to happen. But regardless, I'm with you guys. OKC is going to win in 4 or 5 games. I'd be shocked if against either of these teams it went longer than 5 games. I think they're just going to be toying with people. I'm going to go ahead and get into this one. It's my favorite matchup of the first round. Part of that is because of bias and that I like the Houston Rockets, but it's the 2 seed Houston Rockets against the 7 seed Golden State Warriors. It's the new kids on the block, versus the old savvy veterans. But hey, now Curry's done some good things here and there. But hey, now there's also been injuries. Allan, I know you're a fellow Houston Rockets supporter, so I want to throw to you first for this. This series could go the full distance, could go 7 games. I don't think anyone would be super surprised. I think it should go at least 6 games potentially, but how do you see this going down? Who has the advantage? With Rockets, as well, if not better than I do, that it's always kind of like a question in crunch time, what's going to happen? And that can be a bad problem to have during the playoffs. Anyway, how do you see this series going down?
I mean, it's an exciting series. As a Houston fan, I am traumatized by the Warriors. So part of me doesn't have a lot of hope because it's the Warriors. But I go back to what Fred VanVleet just said yesterday when somebody asked him about that history. And he said, we ain't that team and they ain't that team.
I like that.
It's not the same. If I'm a Warriors fan, after watching that play-in game, I don't have a lot of confidence. It's not like they were playing well. Memphis is just not a good team, and they barely beat them. So I, I mean, minus Ja turning his ankle, and I know he came back, but I Memphis had that game, I think. So I, I think this one. I think if the Warriors win, it's going to go seven, and they're going to win on Houston's home court, and people are going to be really upset. I think if the Rockets win, it's almost got to be a quick series, like five, where the Rockets just jump on them and don't let, we're relentless. But those scoring droughts that they have, the 7 minutes without scoring that they have every game, if they can't fix that in the playoffs, it is not going to be pretty for them.
Justin, your thoughts?
This is such a tough series. I really want to pick the Warriors to win this series, but I can't do it. And there's a lot of drama with the Warriors, especially reading now that with Jonathan Kuminga is most likely he's not going to be a Warrior, and there's rumors that he might even be benched during this series. So I don't know what the heck's going on with him, but it's a lot of drama. But at the same time, the Warriors have been 21-7 after the All-Star break. I mean, they've been playing really well, but at the same time, they have struggled against the Houston Rockets. I mean, Steph Curry's only averaged about 16 points against the Rockets. I mean, they did play really solid defense, but at the same time, as I mentioned, the playoff star power, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green makes good plays around this time. It is really tough, but I just think the Warriors have too many deficiencies in the drama going around Kuminga. I see the Rockets winning in 7 games. I think it's going to be a crucible. And I wonder, because I think kind of the similar thing happened with the Sacramento Kings. And really, we didn't see the Kings really capitalize on that, playing the Warriors. So I just think with the Rockets having this high of seed, it's kind of unknown how they're going to handle a lot of the expectations that come with that, especially against a strong Warriors team that has all the history backing them. But I got the Rockets in 7, hesitantly. So,
Yeah, I've got the Rockets. I'm going to say Rockets in 6. And that's no disrespect intended to the Warriors. One of the big things I'm looking at is how is this series going to be officiated, I think is a huge factor, because if the Rockets are allowed to be that physical, defensive, athletic team, if they're allowed to push the Warriors around a little bit, then Allan, I might have to, give you the nod on like Rockets in 5, because last game, that play-in game against Memphis, Steph Curry led the Warriors in rebounding. So that's a huge weakness for the Warriors in this series. And if the Rockets can be really physical with them, it might not matter that they have better scores, because the Rockets defense is going to be so much better than what the Warriors will bring to the table. If it goes to game 7, then as a Rockets fan, I am horrified that Steph is going to have like that 50-point game 7 performance like he did that special night against the Kings in that series that went down. Another thing that makes me nervous, not to try to throw out conspiracies or things like that, but if the Rockets were to lose and the Lakers were to win in the next series that we'll talk about, then I think it has to be mentioned. You get kind of a dream matchup of Curry versus LeBron in the second round. So again, another reason that I'm going to be watching the officiating and to see what comes out of this series. Not saying the NBA would do that, certainly, but man, that Curry versus LeBron and Luka is a tasty matchup as well. It can't be denied. But let's let the new kids on the block rise here if they earn it correctly. Allan, go for it. Get in here.
I think the most important person in this series is recovering from a hamstring injury. So if he shows up, it could go the Warriors' way.
Oh man,
that's Scott Foster.
Oh no, dust off the old Scott Foster memes and all that.
Yep.
Here we go again.
6 man for the Warriors.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is I know in like Rockets culture, if I can say that, this Golden State Warriors thing is a big rivalry. I don't think it works reciprocally the other way. I don't think the Warriors even think about the Rockets. I hope that changes this year. Justin, tell me real quick, who do you think is favored in this series by Vegas?
Let me look that up and see. I believe it.
All right, I'll tell
What
you.
the
It's
odds?
the
Yeah,
Warriors. The Warriors are
gotcha.
favored
Really?
in this
But how
series.
much?
Minus 190. So it's very, very
Really?
close. Very, very close. Rockets
Wow.
plus 160.
The disrespect is real. I don't
Yes.
think they're legit, especially with the Warriors going through all their trouble.
So
I
I would
understand they've
say,
been hot.
I'm not telling anyone to bet. If I were a betting man, based on what I just said about my prediction, what kind of the three of us are sort of tentatively, respect to the Warriors, yes, but what we're feeling, man, it seems like the Rockets are a good bet if you're a betting person. But if you have full faith in the Warriors, then obviously disregard. All right, let's move forward. We got two more series to cover here in the Western Conference. I want to dig into one that I think is interesting more from what will become the fallout of this series than the actual series itself. We have a headline matchup here. I mean, some heavyweights in this series. The number 3 seed Los Angeles Lakers against the number 6 seed Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm torn here because Minnesota has some things going for them that the Lakers are very, very weak at when you talk about like the interior. And I know we've made Rudy Gobert jokes and things like that, but he could be a real problem for the Lakers in some respects. But you've got the headline head-to-head matchup of Anthony Edwards versus Luka Doncic on this team. Of course, LeBron James is there. He's going to be doing things for the Lakers as well. Just a clash of the Titans. So, Justin, I'll throw to you first for this one. How do you see this going down? I mean, do you feel confident with the Lakers having Luka and being that they're the 3 seed and have home court advantage? The Timberwolves, a disappointing year, but they kind of made some ground towards the end of the season. How do you see this going down?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think with Luka, that makes a difference. I have Lakers in 6. Since last year, I've really been burnt out on the Timberwolves, and I just think you add with Julius Randle, I think he hasn't really fit in with them as well, and I just don't see them having enough to beat the Lakers, especially just with their defense as well lacking. I just think when it comes to a clutch situation, I think they falter against the Lakers, so I have them in 6.
Allan, how do you see going?
First of all, in the West, I think seeds 3 through 7 are interchangeable,
Yeah,
and I
Good
think
point.
it's a lot of fool's gold because a lot of those final 2 weeks of games were played against by those teams in 3 through 7 were played against Houston and Oklahoma City, who had nothing to play for.
and in some cases, we're benching starters.
Yeah, yeah. So I think there's a lot of I don't think seeds matter for these matchups. But what does matter is LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and a guy we're not talking about who has been a proven playoff performer, Austin Reeves.
Hmm.
I I think I think those guys will key the Lakers to a win. Um, I I know that Minnesota, made their run, but I just don't trust Rudy Gobert in the playoffs. I think he gets neutralized fairly easily. Um, and so I just don't see. I think this one is Lakers in 6.
Man, you guys, I'll be honest. I am so tempted to pick the Timberwolves in this series. I am so very tempted to do that. But after seeing what we saw in the playoffs last year from Luka Doncic, if he's good to go as we get into the playoffs here, I think he's going to be enough that will will them to this. So I'm going to go Lakers in 7. But man, I if the Timberwolves pull this off, I'm going to be kicking myself for not picking them. But I'll go Lakers in 7. Vegas has this Lakers minus 200. Lakers as the favorites in Vegas.
It,
Go for it.
you know what's interesting, Matt, is I think if it goes seven, I go Wolves in seven.
Mm,
Um, Only because I think that's Anthony Edwards' bread and butter, and when he gets on one, you cannot stop him.
man, so we're either going to
Fascinating.
see Luka, uplifting the Lakers, or we'll be seeing Anthony Edwards giving the old Degeneration X to go back to to wrestling here to the fans in LA, I guess. Um, yeah, I think this will be a really good series. I'm looking forward to seeing how this one rolls out and if the Timberwolves can take advantage of some of their size advantage in this series. Granted, that's really size in the interior that they have the advantage because they are a unique team in that they play with a lot of big players like on the wings and even in that two position when Austin Reeves is there. So this is going to be a really interesting one to watch. I think also the interesting I don't know, kind of like paradox with the Lakers this year is that when LeBron James does better in the stat sheet, usually the team is doing worse for the Lakers. Like if you look at LeBron's plus minus numbers and things like that this year, it's usually when he's scoring in the high 20s and beyond, it's usually a bad night for the Lakers. So I'm curious to see how they're going to navigate that because certainly they do need LeBron James in order to be successful for this postseason campaign. Let's move forward, and I think uh, this may be the tightest contested series in the entirety. I mean, we'll see how that Houston Golden State series pans out, and if they can stay healthy, particularly the Warriors and Scott Foster, as Alan mentioned, if they can stay healthy through that series. But another series where questions with health will certainly be at play and lasting the full series. We have the number 4 seed Denver Nuggets versus the number 5 seed Los Angeles Clippers. Justin, you and I have long, I think for the past, 3 years at least, have always told people like, don't buy the Clippers. Never trust the Clippers. That's almost like a motto of the podcast. Unfortunately for the Clippers, because we got nothing against you. We'd like to see you, challenge the Lakers as the team in LA. But we've got the 4 seed Denver Nuggets with, I would say, the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic. A lot of turmoil, of course, recently, if you've been paying attention to the headlines, as I know you guys have. But with Mike Malone being fired, with Calvin Booth being gone, maybe Calvin Booth as GM being gone doesn't affect playoffs all that much, but certainly Rick Adelman's son on the bench. We'll see how he can do in his coaching debut. Justin, just plain and simple, how do you see this series going? I guess the other side of this, just to complete the loop on the Clippers, is they had a stretch where they had won at least 8 games straight. They finished the season really hot. Kawhi Leonard was around. How do you see this going?
Yeah, I hate picking this series, and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go against our motto and pick the Clippers in 6. I just
Man,
think
yep.
with Denver, I think I understand they got the best player, but too much turmoil and not enough to overcome it. And I think the Clippers are playing well, but I'm hesitant, and I have a feeling Kawhi's gonna tear his ACL to game 1. So I might be proven wrong here, but I would say Clippers in 6. You take a look at Kawhi. Why I'm hesitant. He missed the first 34 games. He played in 21 of the last 25. It looked pretty solid. And you take a look, Clippers have had a great defense, but they've had the league's number 1 offense the last 21 games. So to me, I think they're playing pretty well. They have really solid coaching with Van Gundy and Ty Lue. And I think that's going to be a massive advantage, especially with all the turmoil going on in Denver. I can't do it. I got to pick the Clippers hesitantly, unfortunately. But I have a feeling I'm going to be wrong. But
Alan, do you agree? How do you see this going?
So this is crazy. Justin, I agree. Clippers in 6,
Ooh,
and the Denver stuff is that their team outside of Nicola is just and Aaron Gordon
yeah,
just isn't that good.
agreed.
Uh, Aaron can be hot and cold. Jamal, I think, is just. Will we get playoff Jamal? I don't know. Um, Inexperienced coaching. Um, the horse farm beckons. Um, and so I look at the Clippers and honestly, and this is going to sound crazy, they're, you know how I said the Knicks are my dark horse pick to make the Eastern Conference Finals? The Clippers are my dark horse pick to make the Western Conference Finals.
Mm,
Wow.
I think in my vision, Kawhi stays healthy, and
has to.
they run up. I mean, nobody talks about it, but Zubac is just been crazy good.
He's a beast.
That's going to go down as one of the Lakers' worst trades ever. Um, uh, so Harden is still one of the premier game managers and passers in the game. I know his shooting efficiency is still Harden-like, but he is going to make the right read, the right pass. Norm Powell, I think, is just. I mean, he's dialed it back down since Kawhi came back, but he is capable of putting up big, big games. And they're well coached. You cannot discount the addition of former broadcaster Jeff Van Gundy. Jeff Van Gundy knows defense and knows basketball. He's forgotten more about basketball than most of these coaches know. And I think he's been a great addition for them. Hopefully there's some sort of brawl and he's grabbing on Zubac's leg at some point. But we'll see. I think the Clippers will win this series, and they're my dark horse pick to make the Western Conference Finals.
Guys, I'm going to stick with the podcast motto. I'm not going to trust the Clippers. I'm gonna ride with Jokic here.
Respect.
I agree with the criticisms of the Nuggets. They're very fair. It's in disarray right now. I don't know. I think they can find, maybe it's just personal pride that they need to find. I don't know what it is. Maybe Jokic needs to just yell at the team a little bit more like he has been on the sidelines in recent games. I'm going to go Nuggets in 7. I think it's going to be an incredibly close series. It wouldn't shock me if you guys are correct about the Clippers. They're certainly the hotter team going into this. I can't envision Jokic with a first-round exit, but it's not like that's never happened before. We'll see what happens. This may be the year that it happens again. In terms of Vegas, they see it. This is the closest split. Clippers minus 125. So Vegas sees this probably as a 6 or 7 game series. So there you have it. This is our first round preview for the playoffs. And it leads into, I think, what looks nice for the NBA. And as we move forward in the playoffs, some very noteworthy second round matchups as well. I mean, we could get, the Clippers or the Nuggets against OKC, I think is a fun series in the second round. Obviously the Lakers versus the Warriors or the Rockets or the Timberwolves versus either of the winners of that 2-7 series. Some very exciting rivalries and I think potential for some new legacies to be built just based on all the bona fide heavyweights that are in the playoffs right now. And I think on the top of the mound, with that OKC team being by the numbers just as dominant as they've been and how many strong contributors they have on that team. I mean, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander can ride that wave to make a solid legacy for himself as a guard in the NBA. If they go through and win the finals as they should by the numbers, this is going to be a banner year and kind of a cool thing for OKC fans to finally get that title in that area. We won't talk about the Supersonics when we bring that up. Oops, I did, but no, would be a great thing for the fans out in OKC there. Guys, any just final thoughts before we wrap up here?
Only final thoughts from me. Just our Hoopsology archives. We have interviews with Bob Rathbun. Jay McManus has returned to the show. Also, Jim Tooley of Team USA. Jim Lampley. Just go through our archives. Plenty of great interviews discussing the game of basketball on all fronts. We've interviewed Tim Alcorn and Dave Johnson, both play-by-play announcers for the Wizards and Cavaliers, respectively. So check out our archive. Plenty of relevant content, along with some great documentaries that we've interviewed the directors for Celtic City and Court of Gold. So check that out on our archives right now.
Absolutely. Allan, any final words?
Yeah, drive safely and don't forget to tip your wait staff.
There we go. With that, this has been another episode of In the Lab with Hoopsology. Thank you for going the distance with us. Let us know your thoughts on all these topics, from our headlines, where do the Phoenix Suns go, what's the course of action that you see for them, and also give us your playoff picks. We'd love to know where you think we're right, where you think we're wrong. So until next time, I'm Matt Thomas for Justin Goodrum, for Allan Munzler. Peace out. We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Later.